Here we're doing a ball taper with no guards after we knock the hair down. A lot of people ask me when I use this method. A lot of times I use this when I'm trying to speed up the process, not trying to waste any motion. Literally, I just go on with my clipper and my comb and just blend the fade out completely. This really alleviates me from having to go back and grab a bunch of guards, looking at any extra motion. It speeds up my process a lot more. By this point, I am already combing through the hair and I'm making sure everything is flowing in the perfect direction. One thing you will see me doing is playing with the lever because his hair is dense in more areas than other and wavier in more areas than others. So I have to make it look all even and looks as if the density is correct or the same all the way throughout the haircut. So here I'm setting in my first guideline. Notice that I'm not doing the clipper right side up. I'm actually having it flipped upside down to not put in as harsh of a guideline. So it'll be a lot easier for me to take out. And like I said, we just speeding up the process a little bit more. So this is if you're trying to kill some time or if you need to kind of go through a haircut relatively quick. All right, so what I've done is I go ahead and start putting in another guideline. And honestly, throughout this fade, I'm not putting in guidelines to really follow. It's more so for me to just see a little bit of a transition, but honestly, I'm eyeballing everything. And outside of how I normally fade, I'm actually having my clipper only part of the way open on that first time. So now I actually have my comb and I'm lifting the hair up, but I'm not necessarily making another guideline. I am just trying to see where I can blend it up a little bit more. So after this point, I actually open the clipper up a little bit more and really trying to inch my way up, starting the fade process, making sure that we are blending but not just pushing it up high. So I am creating somewhat of a guideline and blending underneath it in a sense, but in my mind I'm visualizing that I have guards on when I really don't. So all of this comes in with the tilt of the clipper. Notice if it's flat against the head, you may be a little bit closer. As you bring it away, that's bringing the blades a little bit further away. So as I tilt, that's what's happening. Right here, I'm using my comb as if it is similar to like my one guard. So that would have been like a one guard close, and that would have made another guideline for me to be able to take it out and just continue to blend underneath. And once I have a dark zone, like right here, with no guard, I'm just making sure everything under here is starting to blend and come together. I don't want to keep pushing it higher and trying to fade higher when everything under here isn't correct. So I do continue to take my comb and push out. So as you see, I roll my comb out to actually make sure the hair is sticking out further. I'm not cutting off too much hair. And from this point, it's literally just all lever play. So anything, let's just say if you started open, anything underneath that should be knocked down at a lower notch. Still using my comb to kind of lighten that up. And ultimately, when I'm using my comb right there, I'm really just debulking. It's not necessarily blending at that point. It's more so debulking and knocking some of the area down so it is a little bit lighter. And it starts to give me that transition from the bulk into what I would call the fade. And as I get higher up in this area, notice I'm primarily using corners. Most of the time I'm using corners because when you're using the last 2 to 3 teeth on the blade, you're not going to take off that much hair. Even if you did by accident when you're trying this, it's not going to be enough that you can't fix it. Even if you got nervous and you slap your guard back on, it's not enough that you can't fix it. So I'm taking light strokes when I get up in that area right here, and I'm mainly just using the last 2 teeth on the blade. I'm just making sure that I'm not pressing too hard, I'm not going up too high, and honestly I'm just like slowly taking my time. And like I said, although this alleviates us from using guards, you do have to take your time in certain parts, especially in bulky areas, to make sure you're not pressing too hard or that you don't cut off more hair than you really want to remove, because we don't want to go back and fix it. Like I said, this method is used to kind of speed up the process in most cases. So notice when he scrunches eyebrows up, one thing that I do here I make sure that I stretch the skin out right here because I don't want to confuse this muscle right here, this area on the head, to where I'm not blending it in and making it an excuse, because it is something right there. And at this area, like I said, I'm stretching the skin, but I'm also going with the grain, and I'm not pushing too hard. I'm just literally watching the hair go through the teeth and still kind of debulking at this point. I still go with the grains if I was using my guard, but just not quite as hard. And I'm using the back side of the clipper to kind of graze through, and the hair is just kind of flowing through the teeth like that. So as you see from this angle, even though his hair is a little wavy, most of the fade is already done at this point. A lot of times I go ahead and, do a couple extra detailing things, but honestly, like, most of the fade is done, and I just make sure that like I said, continuously blend out anything underneath that bulk, because you'll see what we do at the end when it comes to debulking that dark part of the hair, the dark part of the hair where it is transitioning from the bulk into our actual fade. As you see, I just take my trimmer and I just hit any dark spots that my clipper wouldn't get out with the especially on that lower level of the fade. Lastly, I'll take some thinning shears and I'm literally just using the comb to lift the hair, and I'm literally just debulking the hair with the thinning shears. I don't really want to cut too much more at this point. I just want to make sure I have a fluid transition. Once again, using the corner of my clippers, just making sure I get anything out that doesn't belong in there. And this is the other side. We do basically the exact same thing. Notice that his hair is a little bit different right here when it comes to the wave pattern, but being that we aren't using any guards, it really doesn't matter from this point, because ultimately our process is still the same, because it's basically freestyle and just getting dark areas out and just blend into a transition. So the change of the hair really doesn't matter as much when you're not using guards. And on this side, I think I actually started closed just to show a different way, versus being halfway open. I actually just went closed, and I started to knock that bottom line out. And then the only thing I got to do from here is once again just blend up. And just like anybody's head, this side is for whatever reason easier to fade. Anybody we cut is always gonna have one side is easier to do than the other. One side that may look a little bit better than the other, depending on how the hair lays, whatever the case may be. Typically, I also like to start on the most difficult side, in my opinion, because that's probably gonna take the most time. This side is super easy, that's gonna come together quick like this. I knocked it out last because I know, let's just say if I'm crunched for time, or if I'm a little bit behind, I can make sure I can knock out this side relatively quick and continue on with my day. And as you see, once again, I go with the grain. I'm lightly doing it. Only watching the teeth go straight through the blade and just letting them come out. I'm not smashing against the head as if I have a guard on. I'm just lightly grazing it and just using it as a form to debolt without having to go get another guard or even having to use my comb. One thing I will say is a lot of people will be nervous to go up here. Like I said, when you're using the corners, you're not going to take off too much hair. So don't be nervous to, go up in there where it's a little bit darker at. You only using the corners, you're just going to debulk it. It's not going to knock off a whole lot of hair. Like I said, you just using the last couple of teeth though. To make sure you're not using the whole blade on that area, because you will cut a patch in if you do. But one thing I do when I'm doing these type of haircuts is I may spin the client towards the mirror so I see the other side to make sure everything is as symmetrical as possible. So at this point, I'll put some waving foam on, and I went ahead and laid the hair down in the direction I needed to go. And you'll see how laid it is. I got everything completely laid and moved forward. And I basically brushed that waving foam in and put the do-rag over top of it and briefly dried it really quick. Like this shouldn't take more than, 5 minutes maybe onto the surface. But and it can be upcharged as well, because it gives a different finished look in my opinion. But I also primarily want it for specifically his hairline, because we're not using any enhancements outside of the pencil. So ultimately I need everything to be pushed forward as much as possible to make sure I can get him a sharp line. And all I'm doing here is just making sure his skin is just completely clean and dry, because this particular client, my boy can sweat a little bit. So trimmers do not do well when somebody's sweating. So I make sure everything is dry and completely laid and moving forward, or laid forward as much as possible, so that I can get the sharpest line on it without adding any type of color enhancement. So one thing that me and my client we established at the very beginning when we first started working together is his hairline it more has like a rounder shape to it, right? He doesn't necessarily like the way his natural hairline grows in, so he likes to make it a little bit more straighter, not pushing it back, but not quite as round as what we see here, as well as these sides do not match when it comes to the vertical bars. So a couple things that we need to consider is that when you're doing this type of lineup, always definitely want to keep this out to the forefront. This is the strongest part. There's no reason for pushing this back, but you will have to adjust either side or the other when something does not match, because we still want the lineup to look symmetrical no matter what the natural hairline looks like, in my opinion. Because if a hairline grew in perfectly, it would be no need for us to line it up. So therefore we have to get it symmetrical as possible, but we figured it out through a consultation, actually having conversation and understanding what he wants to achieve. So I just want to, go ahead and clarify that in the sense of how we're attacking this lineup specifically when you have a new client. You need to communicate with them as to what you see. If you see that their hairline has that more rounder shape to it, ask them, what are they looking for? Is it, a more natural look, extremely sharp look? Do you like the roundness of it? Do you want to straighten it out a little bit? It's all based off of what the client wants in communication. So I take a little brush and I'm just making sure I'm brushing everything down some more and making sure everything is completely ready. And I'll face them towards me and we start right in the middle. Notice it is a tad bit lighter right here. I still don't push it back to that spot because we can actually catch that line. I don't see a reason to push that back, in my opinion. So we still can catch that line even though it's not as dense right there. We do have to go across it a few times and make sure we just brush everything down. But as you see, we can already start to get it straight without any type of crazy pushback or changes to the lineup. And basically when it comes to the lineup, I just start on one side, start right in the middle, go to one side, whatever I'm comfortable with that particular haircut, and then go to the other side. So I'm making sure I'm keeping it out as far as possible while still trying to achieve the look that he's going for. And like I said, these areas may not be as dense, but we can continuously brush it down and hit the spots, and we can get a good lineup on it. So remind yourself that this is a natural cut. Whether the color is involved or not, there's no need to necessarily push it back. Be reminded that it's a natural cut. regardless of if we add a color or not, we still want a strong natural line up, you know, and just keep it as sharp as possible. So like I said, on this side, we had to figure out a way to work it in there. The slant comes out, or the line comes out more so straight down, versus the other one comes at an angle. So he wants the more angle look to match the other one, which is what we did right here. So therefore you see it hitting that particular part of the eyebrows, and it has a slant to it to match the other side, because ultimately if we would have kept it straight, it would have looked completely uneven and unsymmetrical. So here we've already lined it up and we put the pencil on. I lightly use the pencil. I don't necessarily like the bold look of leaving it completely white. That's some people's thing, not necessarily mine. So typically when I put the pencil on, I already put it on light, and I literally just smudge it with the razor and ultimately use it as some contrast. One thing that I did that could happen to you as well, sometimes when you put the pencil on, it can dull out the corner and make it appear to be dull because of where the white lines intersect. So sometimes you want to go back and hit that with that trimmer. Like I tried to hit it with a razor, it wasn't quite sharpening like I wanted to. So you will see at the end, I'll just go back and knock it down, or hit that corner a little bit sharper, because I didn't like how round it made it look from a distance. And it's okay to always go back in detail. If you see anything, especially when you put the line on, just go back in detail and make sure you get the most perfect cut you could possibly get. Like I said, I didn't like how round it looked in that corner, so I was like, let me fix this. So I went back in and definitely lined it up and made it back sharper to where it was. It's literally, like I said, when using the pencil, sometimes it can give it that illusion because of where the pencils line up, or the corner of the pencils line up. So literally just go back with your trimmer and smooth it out a little bit more, brush it, and it'll be right back in the game. And after, you know, hitting that side a little bit, he definitely happy about the cut. You see your client dancing, he ready to go. He ready to go out this weekend. So yeah, this is the cut with no guard. Hit me up if you got any questions about it, man. I'd definitely be willing to answer anything that you want to know about it. Yeah, but this is the cut, and we out.